Let's start with the grip and holding the stick. Break it up into 3 equal parts, then let go with one hand. Now we come into a fighting stance. The stick is going to be pointed at the chin of your opponent. You don't want it pointing straight up, you want to point it slightly in. The left hand is your checking hand, so we're going to have that up and ready for protection. If we have it crossed or the weapon comes out, this hand is still very useful. Equal parts, then let go with one hand. Now we come into a fighting stance. The stick is going to be pointed at the chin of your opponent. You don't want it pointing straight up, you want to point it slightly in. The left hand is your checking hand, so we're going to have that up and ready for protection. If we have it crossed or the weapon comes out, this hand is still very useful. Okay, let's learn your 14 angles of attack with the stick. Starting off in a fighting stance, 1 is straight forward with that thrust. 2 is a horizontal strike high. 3 is a horizontal strike high in the other direction. 4, diagonal down. 5, diagonal down the other side. Then we go 6, horizontal mid-level. 7, then 8 is a diagonal up, and the other side. 9. Now we're going to go 10 and 11 is going to be a horizontal strike low. 10, 11. Then we come 12 is a vertical down strike, and then 13 is a vertical upward strike. From here, the 14, the last strike, we're going to strike straight down to the ground here. That's our last strike, coming back into a fighting stance. Normally when you're finished with your 14 angles of attack, you're going to reverse the grip and you start all over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, reverse the grip, back into your fighting stance. Now let's look at that angle form from a different angle. 1, thrusting forward. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 is the last move, coming back up into your fighting stance. Now let's look at the angle form from the other side. Fighting stance, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and back into your fighting stance. Okay, do this. Pause the tape, grab your stick, and you're going to follow me through all the strikes. I'm going to turn around so it might be hard to see, but you get to see some of my motions. You're just going to follow me through the form. Get your stick. Starting off, 1, thrusting forward. 2, horizontal high. 3, horizontal high the other direction. 4 is a diagonal down. 5 is a diagonal down in the other direction. 6, mid strike. 7, the other direction. 8, coming from the low area, all the way up diagonal. And 9 on the other side. 10 is going to be a low strike, horizontal. Other side. 12, straight down. 13, straight up. Ending with a downward strike to the ground. Back into your fighting stance. Now let's focus on a little footwork. Start off with your right leg back in your fighting stance. You can actually do this in the reverse stance. But we're going to start off with the right leg back, and we're just going to follow me, and then you're going to create your own footwork as you move. The idea is to be moving while you're striking. We're going to start off with a small shuffle forward, small step, just like that, forward. We do that thrust strike. Then we're going to step to the side as you do that horizontal strike. So we step forward, then to the side. Then we step in the other direction as we do the other strike. And we just sort of follow that pattern. Now we do the diagonal. We're going to step forward and switch our feet, diagonal. Then we're going to switch our feet again, the other diagonal. And then we're going to move to the right here, and then back to the other side. And then we're going to lower our weight, switch our feet, lower our weight, just like that. Drop down to one leg, strike, strike. Shift up, strike, straight up, and switch feet, straight down. Back into your fighting stance. Now grab your stick again and follow me from the other side. I'm going to do it from the other angle. From behind, you can watch. Just try to follow my footsteps. In the fighting stance, the right leg back. Little step forward, 1. Step to the right, 2. Step to the left, 3. Switch feet, diagonal strike down. Switch feet again, diagonal strike down. Mid-level, to the outside, and then back again. Then we're going to lower our weight for that diagonal strike, and again back up. Dropping down to the knee, coming back up, down strike, shifting, striking back up, and straight down for your last strike, ending in a fighting stance. It's not really important exactly where you step when you're doing these strikes. The idea is that you're moving. If I do this strike, I might move this direction. I might shift. I might switch my feet around as I'm striking. Just get a comfortable balance when your movements, and you'll find something that works and fits naturally for yourself. Another thing when doing all of these strikes is where to put this hand. Do you bring it in or do you leave it out? This is also dependent on what's happening. What I like to do is just sort of follow the motions of my stick. Keep this involved. Just as much as you're using this arm or the weapon hand, you're going to need to use this checking hand. Usually you'll keep it close to your body, protecting over here. If you strike, this is an open area, so you'll usually bring it into the open area. If you strike out, this becomes an open area, so you'll usually bring it out in this area here. Okay, let's look at the striking areas with this angled form. First one is going to be the solar plexus area. 2, the temple of the head. 3, the temple of the head. 4, diagonal down the collarbone. 5, diagonal down the collarbone. You can also strike the top of the wrist, the hands, or the fingers with these 2 strikes. 6, to the ribs. 7, to the ribs. You can also strike to the elbows. 8 is diagonal straight up into the wrist or the hands. And same on the other side. That would be 9. 10 is down to the knees. If one leg is forward, we're focusing on just that knee. If his legs are even, we're going to strike on one side of the knee of his one leg and then the other. That's our 10 and 11. 12, straight down on top of the head. 13, up into the groin or the chin. And then 14 is actually a straight down strike to the body or to the head. Back into your fighting stance. Make sure that when you're doing all of your strikes, you're not holding that stick really tight. If you do so, it's going to make your motion kind of weird, and it's also going to slow down your attacks. You want to loosen up your hands a little bit. Hold on with a good grip. What I like to do is put my thumb real tight over some of my fingers and loosen that grip up a little bit. That way, you can still get a good strike, but you have a loose, flexible grip with your strikes. When you're moving from each angle, you want to try to have some fluidity. Instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is okay in the beginning, you want to more keep it fluid so that you have a little more speed, but you're still maintaining control. Instead of the robotic motions. When you're doing your motions, you might want to add in some fancy movement with the eskrima stick. One of those is called an Arco. It's just this simple little motion right here. Works really good with your motions, attacking, so forth. How we do the Arco is we're just going to kind of let it drop and holding on with the thumb and the index finger. Let it fall forward, and we spin our wrist just a little bit. Let it come back into position. We're barely holding on to that stick. It works the exact same way in the other direction. When you're practicing this 14-angled form, you're going through the motions, start mixing it up a little bit and doing some of your own motions, adding arcos, little spins, different types of steps, maybe kicks, flipping the grip, changing it around. The idea is to be flexible and be comfortable with the movement of the stick as well as holding the manipulation of the weapon. Practice with a lot of different things. Just use the 14-angle form as a guideline for your training. When practicing your angle form, eventually you're going to want to get to contact something. We like to use BOB, the body opponent bag. Something else that works good is a heavy bag. Anything that you can actually attack, so you have some resistance when you're doing your strikes. Now, there are different ways of striking. One is just the motion where you follow through. Here. On the body. Another one is where you're snapping that strike out. Following through or snapping the strike. A lot of snapping strikes are used in boxing, like the jab, and then you have the power punch. The same concept, you might snap, and then power strike. When you're doing your strikes, the key is to get as many strikes as possible. So you want fluidity. If I strike one, I want to then flow to another strike. So I'm mixing my strikes up. At the same time, I can keep them the same. Horizontal, horizontal. Twisting my hips and my body, my arm, and my wrist all at the same time to get more speed. If I was just going 1 and 2, I'm not going to be able to strike that fast. So I want fluidity, 1 and 2. Another way to get 2 strikes out of one motion is to strike above the head, follow through, and then strike again. Goes 1, 2. Looks like one strike. But it's actually hitting twice. Right there. Even though you're doing weapons training, it's important to realize is that this is not your only weapon. You still have other parts of your body to attack with. And you should use those when you're doing your training. Another thing is, most of what we've been doing is one-handed type training. You want to make sure that you practice in both of those hands. Also, practice with double stick training, where you're grabbing it here. These are forward type strikes, angle type strikes, and thrusting type strikes.